Ryan Seacrest here. When you have a busy schedule, it's important to maximize your downtime. One of the best ways to do that is by going to ChumbaCasino.com. Chumba Casino has all your favorite social casino games like spin slots, bingo, and solitaire that you can play for free for a chance to redeem some serious prizes. So hop on to ChumbaCasino.com now and live the Chumba life. Sponsored by Chumba Casino.
No purchase necessary. VGW Group. Void where prohibited by law. 21 plus. Terms and conditions apply.
This is a Fatal 4 podcast.
And prepare to shuffle those feet from side to side. It's time for Squared Circle Strafe, the premier video game podcast of the Fatal 4 Podcasting Network. I am your host, Pro Wrestling Noah, aka Noah Stewart, and it's time to talk about video games. Hey everybody, welcome in to the show. This one I think coming in a little later than usual. I had a non-busy weekend. It's a humble brag. It's my birthday. Actually, of the day I'm recording this, it is my birthday. So I had a little bit of a I had one day where I was at home all day. I got to play a lot of video games, which I'll tell you about later. And then the following day, when I usually record the podcast, I actually had like a decently busy day of going and seeing people, having meals with parents and other family members, and it was a good time. Nice time seeing everyone. Didn't have like a ton of time to podcast this weekend, so I'm doing it today. Might be coming out a little later than usual. Today being Monday, that is. But hey, we'll see. But video games, they're happening. We're starting to get out of the kind of sluggish January into a pretty happening end of February here. Have got some new releases we're talking about this week, and then next week we're I think seeing what's gonna truly be like the first big title of the year with Monster Hunter Wilds, which I'm hearing some mixed-ish things about. I think there's some of the review embargo stuff is coming up today as I'm recording this, and I'm hearing mixed things. Either like it's a little too autopilot-y for what people tend to expect from the Monster Hunter franchise. So I think your mileage may vary on that stuff depending on what you expect from Monster Hunter. I don't know. Looking forward to that. I will probably be picking that up at some point. I don't know if I'm going to be picking it up at launch. I think I'm going to see kind of what my immediate friend group plans are on that, because some of them I've heard are even like thinking, maybe I'll like wait on this one, see like how the groups form out, if you know what I mean. But hey, it's enough about upcoming video games. Why don't we talk about some of the stuff that's been happening in video games this week, starting off with some news, and we got some distressing-ish news, maybe some like not so chipper news, interesting news nonetheless. I think the thing that a lot of people were talking about as far as industry stuff goes this past week was the bizarre situation with the staff of developers responsible for Marvel Rivals and its publisher NetEase. That being that despite its big success, this news coming to us from Video Games Chronicle, by the way, Marvel Rivals director and others have been laid off. Now, this is the Seattle-based team responsible for Marvel Rivals, which it turns out is somewhat of a support studio, a little more critical than like the usual support studio, but the main development team resides in China, which is the home of its publisher NetEase. We found out about this news posting on his LinkedIn profile on Tuesday. NetEase's California-based game director Thaddeus Sasser claimed that an unspecified number of Marvel Rivals American developers had been let go, including himself. Quote, "This is such a weird industry," he wrote. "My stellar, talented team just helped deliver an incredibly successful new franchise in Marvel Rivals for NetEase Games, and were just laid off." Sasser confirmed that level designer Gary McGee had been let go as part of the layoffs, while other designer Jack Burrows also confirmed that NetEase had let him go. Another quote, "Well, just got laid off from my job working on Marvel Rivals with NetEase." They wrote, "Was an enormous pleasure to work with my American coworkers who joined me in this sad culling. Just continue dodging that big... Oh, just couldn't dodge that big boot, I guess, no matter how big the success of the gig." Yeah, big bummer, especially, surprise layoffs are never fun, especially for what appears to be a hugely successful launch for Marvel Rivals, which went 1.0 in December, and it is now, February, and consistently has the highest player numbers on Steam. Most incredible thing is that, Marvel Rivals is a game as service. It's a live service game, which I've talked about many times on this podcast. Seems like a nigh impossible task these days to make a successful one of these that actually, is able to burst through the wall of all of the existing games as service, what with your Fortnites and Apex Legends, CSGO to an extent, League of Legends, all these things that years and years of, dedicated fan bases that have already decided to dedicate their time to specific games. And we've already seen failures, with this genre of game from last year, whether that be Concord or X-Defiant, some various other stuff, some stuff that from Sony that has been canceled in development because they see the writing on the wall of it's really hard to break into this space. And Marvel Rivals did it. Granted, with a combination of, one of the hero shooters failing, that being Concord, while also having a hugely successful IP attached to them with Marvel, which will, all but guarantee a large amount of interest, at least in trying the thing out. But people have stuck around. People enjoy, the gameplay of it, the aesthetics. They have broken through the barrier of having people, stick around and play it, which, the longer people play a thing, the more likely they are to spend money on it, which apparently, that is happening for them. So a really big bummer when something is this hugely successful and the people who help make it are rewarded for that effort by losing their jobs, which is also kind of compounded and made more frustrating when, very soon after this news came out, NetEase announced that Marvel Rivals has passed 40 million players and a net revenue of $2.9 billion, which is, again, huge numbers, wild, what was it? It was, 40 million players, 600,000 of which over that number are playing concurrently on average at any given time. And apparently, so I think a lot of some of the misunderstanding, at least when this news was first coming out, was people thinking that the dev team who made the game were getting let go, when in reality it was a US based team that was acting as somewhat of a support studio, while the main development team in China is still around, still supporting the game. And in regards to why the American team was let go, NetEase actually put out a statement to VGC confirming the news. Quote, "We recently made the difficult decision to adjust Marvel Rivals' development team structure for organizational reasons and to optimize development efficiency for the game. This resulted in a reduction of a design team based in Seattle that is part of a larger global design function in support of Marvel Rivals. We appreciate the hard work and dedication of those affected and will be treating them confidently and respectfully. confidentially, and respectfully with recognition for their individual contributions. So it appears that like a lot of like what is happening here is due to restructuring efforts, which is also compounded again by apparently NetEase is also has their eye on like a dozen studios that are under them that are reportedly at risk, also having cuts happen to them. These studios being like NetEase Montreal, Quantic Dream, the people that did Heavy Rain and Detroit Become Human, Grasshopper Manufacturer, who's headed by Suda51, responsible for like No More Heroes and Killer 7, and various other, like many other studios that are, starting to feel uneasy about their situation under such a big company. One more time, another statement coming from NetEase saying the company continues to invest in our global business and actively recruits and nurtures talent. At the same time, organizational structure changes aimed at improving performance are necessary part of our ongoing growth. NetEase Games has a clear understanding of our development trajectory and areas of strength. Many of our strategic decisions are firmly grounded in these core areas. Since the launch of Westward Journey Online in 2001, NetEase has accumulated over 20 years of experience in developing and operating online service games. The success of Marvel Rivals further affirms the value of this experience. At the same time, we acknowledge that we are still in the early stages of exploring single-player game development and operations. This makes us more cautious when evaluating such products and assessing the associated risks and opportunities, particularly in today's fast-changing and highly competitive environment. CEO Mr. Ding stated on the recent earnings call that NetEase is committed to supporting really high quality studios and master creators. That is the company's strategy, and there is no change in this plan. For any studio globally, it behooves us as a responsible commercial business to frequently evaluate the progress, viability, and potential for success of our products and terms. So it sounds like from this statement that they're basically saying that they found success in Marvel Rivals, but due to kind of like the shifting, landscape of game development, specifically Chinese game development, they are starting to kind of change their scope of what they want to focus on from live service games to single player, kind of like higher budget games. And I think what a lot of this has to do with is the success of Black Myth Wukong, actually, from last year. I think that the success that found not only in China, but, in America as well, as it, sold like gangbusters over here as well, kind of really gave the Chinese development scene a lot of confidence of feeling that they can compete with Western, like blockbuster single player development, and are now going to try and, head in that direction. So again, what the statement kind of feels like to me is kind of them covering themselves to basically say that like, hey, we're going to start focusing in this area of games. So this is us kind of giving ourselves an excuse to kind of cut ties and cut staff in studios wherever we see fit if they're not quote unquote lining up with our new vision and direction for where we want to focus our goals in game development. So I think I don't necessarily think this means that developers that are focused on single player games are necessarily safe. I think the only ones that are, quote unquote safe, because, it feels like you're never quite safe in game development, especially these days. But I think the people that they will want to keep on are the people that are making the high budget single player games that they want to make and are focusing on. So not necessarily everyone is safe. I'm sure all these developers are, feeling some pressure right now. So yeah, feeling for all the people in Seattle that lost their jobs, and feeling for all of these developers currently under NetEase, hoping that there's, bright futures for everyone out there. But it's weird times in the industry when, again, I think the overall takeaway from this is that regardless of kind of how the company views where it's going as far as its goals. A huge success, a huge, like top of the industry success, like Marvel Rivals, can still be rewarded with losing your job. And that sucks. It seems like the first thing to be let go when considering what to cut as far as a business is workers. And that is something that I feel like the game industry as a whole needs to reckon with, and hopefully something that, the situation sucks, but hopefully we can learn from it. And then one more bit of like kind of bummer-ish news, not quite as big a bummer as that, but some like slightly disappointing news from Nintendo. Reported this week that Nintendo is ending its My Nintendo Gold Points Switch eShop rewards scheme. This being a kind of like rewards program where as long as you had a Nintendo account, every time you bought games, either digitally or physically, and then registering those games later, you would accumulate gold coins and platinum coins. Platinum coins you could use kind of on their rewards page to get physical goods, like maybe a little puzzle or some bookmarks or something, just like really, ephemeral kind of, like fun little physical goods they would send you in the mail occasionally. But I think the big thing that a lot of people used a lot more was the gold coins, which actively went toward discounts towards your next purchase in the eShop. And you could like bank the coins. I think they expired after a certain amount of time. But if you were regularly buying games in the eShop, you could get like some pretty decent discounts on games. Like after a while, the games that I would most frequently purchase in the eShop were the Picross games, the fun, like very mindless puzzle games that I enjoy. And a lot of the times I would use my Nintendo points to buy those because they were just like $10, and I ended up having around like 1,000 gold coins, which equals like $10. So I'd just be able to like use my gold coins to buy the fun puzzle games. So bit of a bummer that is going away, but I think this comes from them kind of switching from the Switch eShop to what's probably going to end up being the eShop for the Switch 2, which also comes with this other bit of news from Nintendo saying that the Switch game vouchers offer won't count for Switch 2 games. The game voucher system being you could like buy 2 game vouchers that were essentially, you would buy them for $100 and then you would get 2 upcoming like pre-orderable like Nintendo Switch games that you could redeem for the vouchers. Switch games tended to be around $60. So you were really getting like $20 off 2 games for getting the vouchers in advance, which was a great deal. But they're saying that, the vouchers won't count towards Switch 2 games, which makes sense. It's not the best circumstance, but understandable. But I'm hoping that they will have some kind of game voucher system, like going forward for Switch 2 games that will replace this. But it's Nintendo. They're always super, super weird with the way that they handle online stuff. So I guess we will have to wait to see where they land on that. But hey, let's move on to some more upbeat, exciting news, especially for me. Oh my God. I have been going out of my mind excited about the prospect of some of the rumors coming out of this bit of news, being that Tony Hawk might be coming back, baby. Yeah, there have been like some slight rumors for the past couple months coming from the Hawk himself, Tony Hawk, on like podcasts or social media posts, saying that like, hey, like, there might be like a fun surprise coming for the 25th anniversary of Tony Hawk, Pro Skater. And he also, there was also like some, rebranding of their social media pages and stuff, showing that, the franchise wasn't quite, super dead at the very least. And then on the Breakfast Club podcast this past week, pro skater Tyshawn Jones claims that he will feature in a new video game in the Dormant series. Quote, "I'm in a Tony Hawk coming out. That's cool. They got a new one they remastering, so that's about to come out. I was in the last one." So this guy was also in Tony Hawk Pro Skater 1 and 2 remake, which was excellent. I still have downloaded on my PS5 because I just love playing that game so much. But apparently he like all but confirmed that like, yeah, there's like a new one coming out soon. And this news was also, there's just been like a lot of updates on like this remaster coming out this week. Cause also there was a new map update from Black Ops 6 this past week. One of the, what do you call it? One of the maps being taking place in a skate park in Venice, California. And if you go into one of the shops in that map, they actually had on the TV screen, there was a Tony Hawk Pro Skater logo showing a date for March 4th, 2025. Bit of a teaser there. And then they also released a countdown website at TonyHawkTheGame.com showing a countdown timer that will end on Tuesday, March 4th, presumably to announce a new title or remaster. And also, it looks like the some people kind of like went in and data mined the website and found THPS 3.4 countdown in the website's code, which they then removed after people found that. But looking pretty, I'm pretty confident that Tony Hawk Pro Skater 3 and 4 remake or remaster will be coming soon. At the very least, announced on March 4th. So eyes toward March 4th, gamers. The Tony Hawk remaster might actually be happening. And I'm also like a little curious, maybe a little, cautiously optimistic about this because the original developer that did the 1 and 2 remaster, which was like the game that finally nailed what the classic Tony Hawk Pro Skater games felt like, because there had been like numerous failings at people trying to do Tony Hawk remasters or new Tony Hawk games that just not feel right as far as how you expect those games to control. And the developer Vicarious Visions finally did it with the 1 and 2 remake, and were then rewarded for that effort by being dissolved by Activision and thrown into the support studio, wasteland of working on Call of Duty games and Diablo 2 remake and whatnot. I think what people are thinking is that Iron Galaxy, the studio behind the PC version of Tony Hawk Pro Skater 1 and 2, is also named on the website for the countdown timer, which is a studio that recently worked on Killer Instinct and Rumbleverse, in addition to co-developing the remastered Crash and Spyro trilogies. So they have experience with porting and doing remasters of old games. So they have, experience with this kind of, respect to remastered games like this. So I'm really hoping that, especially because they've touched this franchise before with the PC version of Tony Hawk Pro Skater 2, Tony Hawk Pro Skater 1 and 2 remake, that, they're up for the task of bringing 3 and 4 to new consoles. Because 3 is arguably the fan favorite of the franchise. I feel like most people go either Tony Hawk Pro Skater 3 or the first Underground, the first Tony Hawk Underground Thug. The stakes are high for people wanting them to deliver on this thing. But my hopes are high. I'm being cautiously optimistic. Tony Hawk is one of my favorite franchises of video games. I'm crossing my fingers that this has the potential to be on my GOTY list this year, if it is coming out this year. I really hope it is, but we will see if the Phoenix rises from California for this new Tony Hawk 3 and 4 remaster, potentially. And then, hey, folks, this is a video game podcast on a podcasting network that features a wrestling podcast. So it would behoove me not to speak on the WWE 2K25 showcase mode match list that was just released this past week, giving us a look at the different matches you can expect in the Bloodline Dynasty mode, which features an extended Anoa'i family, which includes the likes of Roman Reigns, The Rock, and Umaga. And it features 3 sets of matches: Relive History, Change History, and Create History, which the Relive History mode allows players to compete in matches with the goal being to complete them as they really happened. The Change History mode, which will see the player attempt to overturn famous losses for the Samoan Dynasty. And the Create History matches, which sees players take on fantasy matches that span different eras of WWE. The Relive History matches being Yokozuna with Mr. Fuji versus Hulk Hogan at King of the Ring 93, Rocky Maivia versus Hunter Hearst Helmsley, the Thursday, Raw Thursday, February 13th, 97. Some of these, I am not super familiar with some of these eras of wrestling, so some of these words are new and interesting to me. The Usos versus the New Day with Big E at Hell in a Cell 2017. Solo Sikoa versus Carmelo Hayes with Trick Williams at NXT 2.0, September 13th, 2022. That one is interesting to me because it is, in that it's a rebooted era of NXT episode that they're remaking there, but I guess that was, I think that was one of Solo Sikoa's big matches before he jumped from NXT to the main roster. So, that's kind of a big deal in the Bloodline history, I guess. So that just sticks out to me as an interesting one. And then we also have Nia Jax versus Laya Valkyria at King and Queen of the Ring 2024, which that's a great match. We talked about on Didn't Get All of It podcast about how much we love that match. And then for Change History, we have the Head Shrinkers versus the Steiner Brothers at WrestleMania 9, Rikishi versus Stone Cold Steve Austin at No Mercy 2000, Umaga with Armando Estrada versus John Cena at New Year's Revolution 2007, Tamina versus Natalia versus Carmella versus Charlotte Flair versus Becky Lynch at Money in the Bank 2017, Naomi versus Bayley at Super Showdown 20, and Roman Reigns versus Seth Rollins at Royal Rumble 2022. And then in the Create History matches, we have High Chief Peter Maivia versus George the Animal Steel, going real old there. We got 3-Minute Warning versus AOP with Paul Ellering. The Wild Samoans versus the Dudley Boys. The OG Bloodline versus the Solos Bloodline at War Games. And that one sticks out to me as interesting because something like that happened at the 2024 War Games. But I'm wondering does the OG Bloodline mean like Roman and the Usos and, other people that isn't Sammy and... Well, maybe it doesn't include Sam. Maybe it doesn't include Punk. Or does the OG Bloodline actually mean, like, the Head Shrinkers and Rikishi and Umaga and, the older representatives of, like what they are calling the Anoa'i family bloodline, and then versus Solo's bloodline, which I assume will more or less resemble what we saw in the 2024 War Games. And then... lastly, the Islanders versus the Street Profits. So some interesting stuff there. I'm excited to see. I don't necessarily know if I personally am going to pick this up, but I'm excited to hear what some of my cohorts on the Didn't Get All of It podcast, who are most definitely going to be playing this. I'm fairly confident that B-Rob has already pre-ordered the big expensive version of this. So at the very least, I will be excited to see what B-Rob has to say about all of this. Speaking of new games coming out, this one I think is really neat and fascinating. So a game based on cult anime Samurai Pizza Cats is in development. Samurai Pizza Cats Blast from the Past will bring back the show's original voice cast, which is super, super cool. It's going to be coming to all major platforms in 2026 and already has a Steam page up. And it's set to be published by Red Dunes Games. The game is being developed by Dutch studio Blast Zero, best known for the anime-inspired beat-em-up Jitsu Squad. The game is described as a 2D action RPG and will see players able to switch between the members of the Pizza Cats as they explore the world of Little Tokyo. Each cat will have their own abilities. The first trailer of the game was also released, revealing that the game will have a 2D art style designed to make it look like the original animated series. And I have watched this trailer, and they are correct about that. I would say that it is accurate in the ways that it looks like the old Samurai Pizza Cats cartoon, in a similar way that, something like Cuphead apes the style of like old Fleischer cartoons. It is shockingly accurate, just like from the color palette that they use. Kind of has that, really, kind of washed out, desaturated 80s anime look to it. The character models all look like they move in really convincing ways from that you would expect from the cartoon. It looks really, really sharp and really, really good. And the other cool thing is that they are reuniting the voice cast of both the English and Japanese versions of the TV show. The Japanese version kind of being a more straightforward, anime, still aimed at kids, but the American version was handled by Saban Entertainment, who also did the Power Rangers version, like the American version of Power Rangers, which, much like the American version of Power Rangers, I believe the American version of Samurai Pizza Cats was fairly different due to re-editing and redubbing of everything. So I find it interesting that they reunited both voice casts, and I assume you can play both kind of different versions of this game narratively. So very, very cool looking. We have a while to wait on it because it's not coming until 2026. But that is definitely one that I will be keeping my eye on because it looks really cool. And then one little last bit of news, speaking of games on the horizon, Pokemon Presents has been announced for next week. The Pokemon Company has announced its annual Pokemon Presents presentation to celebrate Pokemon Day. The stream will also include information about upcoming video game projects as well as other news. Will air on February 27th, which is a Thursday, at 2 p.m. UTC, GMT, 6 a.m. Pacific time, and 9 a.m. Eastern time. The Pokemon Company hasn't revealed any specific information about what is going to be shown at the event or how long it is planned to last, but with Pokemon Legends ZA planned for release later this year, it's likely that the company will show off the first new footage of the game since it was first announced last February. So, we don't have any news yet on kind of what the next big Pokemon game is going to be, like the next, proper installment in the Pokemon mainline franchise. But the Pokemon Legend, I loved Legends Arceus. And so I have decent high hopes for Legends ZA. I'm expecting something pretty different from what Legends Arceus was, but I guess we'll be seeing what we have coming from the Pokemon Company on Thursday. So be on the lookout for that. And that's pretty much all the news I got for this week. Why don't we take a quick break? And when we come back, I will talk to you about some of the video games I've been playing.
How to have fun anytime, anywhere. Step 1. Go to ChumbaCasino.com.
ChumbaCasino.com. Got it.
Step 2. Collect your welcome bonus.
Come to Papa welcome bonus.
Step 3. Play hundreds of casino-style games for free.
That's a lot of games. All for free?
Step 4. Unleash your excitement.
Woohoo!
Chumba Casino has been delivering thrills for over a decade. So claim your free welcome bonus now and live the Chumba life. Visit ChumbaCasino.com.
No purchase necessary. VGW Group. Void where prohibited by law. 21 plus. Terms and conditions apply.
And we are back. And yeah, I've been playing a lot of video games this week, folks. There's been some new releases, some stuff that I've like got in my backlog that I've been finishing up, and yeah, just a lot of stuff going on. Why don't we start off with what has been a kind of hot new release this past week? We got Avowed from Obsidian Games, and this is, I would argue, maybe even before Monster Hunter Wilds, this is kind of one of the first like big releases of the year. This coming from Obsidian, the people that brought you the Pillars of Eternity games, which this game is set in that universe, and then also the Outer Worlds RPG series. A lot of people on the team formerly of the people that brought you Fallout New Vegas and whatnot. And yeah, I am digging this game a lot. I think you've been seeing like some mixed reviews on this from some places. I think like IGN gave it like a 7 or something. And just like, I think there's, a sizable amount of, let's just call them degenerates in the bad sense of the word. Let's just call them what they are. Like the anti-woke people online are seemingly targeting this game for various reasons. We don't have to listen to those people. But so just in case you're seeing some negative stuff about this game, just be aware of kind of what those what they are kind of upset about as far as like this game goes. Because the stuff in this game that is good is, in my opinion, very good. It is a like first person Western RPG kind of thing. Think something like Skyrim, but like a little smaller and focused in scope and scale, because it is open world, but instead of being truly open world, it's more open zone. There's kind of like areas that you load into, but you still have like a big overworld map. But you're kind of like there are regions around cities that are kind of like more of the zones that you will be going to. Some decent fast travel options, and what I think is like some really smartly designed like character building and role playing options. I think the tutorialization of how the game starts is actually really smart, because you start off the game, you are what they're calling a godlike, which is kind of a avatar of like a god in their universe. The world building in this game is really cool. They have a very like fleshed out idea of the afterlife, where like everyone in this world just understands that you are born, you die, and then you are thrown into a cycle of reincarnation they call the wheel, where you are like thrown into what's kind of like the life stream in Final Fantasy VII, honestly. And then are like reborn as a new life. So like everyone kind of already knows what to expect from the afterlife in this world, and you are a godlike who most godlikes are born knowing kind of who their patron god is in this world, but your character does not know who their patron god is, and because you are godlike, have like these physical manifestations on your person. In your case, you have various kinds of different fungi or plant life that you can choose to appear on your head and face. I chose kind of like some like tree branch antlers and some like kind of spores growing on like my forehead and cheeks. And the opening parts of this game, I think the tutorialization is really smart, because they give you pretty much all of the weapon types that you can expect in this game up front through a series of encounters, so you can kind of get a handle on what kind of weapons that you're comfortable with, or which ones that you enjoy the most playing around with. Of course, you pick a subclass to start out with. I started with the Court Augur, which the base stats kind of point you in a magic user like focus as far as like your beginning stats go. So I ended up using as my primary weapon the wand and grimoire, which is like your little spell book that you can use. And the spell casting in this game is very fun because the wand, you're just like pelting dudes with, like little magic missiles, basically. That is kind of a less accurate archery option, but you can kind of like, fling them out in quick succession faster than you would with, like archery, bow and arrow kind of option. And then the grimoire gives you access to a bunch of spells that like you can learn spells that you can just like cast out of your, you have a little radial menu that you can choose spells from. But the grimoire kind of gives you free access to spells that you haven't learned that you can just pull directly from there. And you have all sorts of stuff like, fire spells, ice spells, electricity spells. And the way that they interact with I was not expecting the elements that you have access to through your spellcasting to also affect the world, because they will straight up tell you, like when you get to certain sections in the game, like, oh, you're at a bridge, but the bridge is out and there's a, big thing of water that you have to cross, but you aren't able to really jump out of the water to get up to the bridge to cross this area, but you can use your ice spells to freeze the water and then run on top of the frozen water to then jump up onto the bridge that you need to get to. So just really cool, like environmental interactive stuff like that. And then like, also the melee options feel really good. The maneuverability in the game feels really great as well. They have stats for what's like, they straight up call parkour, where you are able to kind of clamber up on to ledges and stuff in a really quick fashion. Then you also have really good maneuverability options for dashing around the battlefield as enemies are attacking you, because I am a magic user and I use the wand and the grimoire, I don't have a shield at the ready to like block or parry oncoming attacks. So my real only option for avoiding damage is by dashing around, which also just feels really good. But the melee options also feel great. The little that I have used, those still feel very cool and good. And the role playing of the game also is really interesting. The characters you meet, like Kai, who's like a big strong fishman, and what's his name, Marius, I believe, who's a rogue dwarf that I've met. I think there's one other character that's supposed to be in like the major main members of your party. One of them I have not met yet that I've seen some screen caps of. I am still kind of in the first major area, but I believe I'm about to wrap it up, the Dawn Shore being the first area. So I think I may be going to meet that character in the next section of the game. But really cool, fun, interesting characters there. And then in the dialogue options, you actually have you have your standard options that you can reply with in any given conversation, but then you also have options to reply based on how high your stats are. Like if you have a high enough intellectual stat, you can, reply with like, oh, I know this piece of information that you're talking about, and I'm going to catch you on that. Or you can, how high your perception is, that you're able to kind of like, recognize things that are happening in a given situation. Or my favorite thing is that you'll have replies based on your class that you decided on at the very beginning of the game. Like I have the Court Augur class, which is basically means that so you are the envoy of the Emperor in this world, and the Court Augur is kind of like a like kind of right hand man fortune teller to the Emperor. So I have a lot of replies based on like spirituality and like being able to kind of foresee the future and stuff like that. So just a lot of really cool role playing options like that. So yeah, really enjoying the game. The level design is really tight. It just feels like there's stuff to do and interact with around every corner. Even the side quests feel very bespoke and handcrafted. and like major, parts of the game, like just really interestingly narrative side quests. And yeah, just really, really enjoying it. I've put about, I want to say at least 10 hours into it so far, and I'm really looking forward to playing more of it. So, Avowed. It's on Game Pass, so if you have that, you please, you don't really have an excuse to not check it out. But it's also, on Steam and Xbox, and I think I don't think it's on PS5 yet. I think it might be coming to PS5 later, since it is a Microsoft owned release, published by them. First party is what I'm trying to say. But yeah, Avowed, very cool. Check it out. And then I also continued playing some of that Urban Myth Dissolution Center. Got through the kind of first mystery of that game. If you don't remember, Urban Myth Dissolution Center is the indie game kind of resembling a Phoenix Wright Ace Attorney kind of situation, but you are deducing cases based around urban myths. The first mystery being what they call the man under the bed, who is this mysterious entity that can appear under people's beds with either an axe or a machete to try and kill them. And you are kind of like trying to suss out if this is a real entity or if it's, someone pretending to be this entity, and you're trying to help out your friend who's having a run-in with this case. In that first case, I don't want to give any spoilers, but it wraps up in a pretty interesting way. And I think there are, I want to say, either 5 or 6 cases total. And I think I've already put in at least 5 hours. These cases are substantial. There's a decent amount of time with all these cases. So this game, I think, is a bit bigger than I was expecting, but it's a lot of reading. So just be ready for that. If you've played any of the Phoenix Wright games, you kind of know what to expect. It's more visual novel than actual, really dewy gameplay kind of stuff. But if you're up for something like that, it's got a gorgeous kind of pixelated anime art style, and I'm still digging it a lot. And then I actually have a handful of games that I finished this week, that got to completed states. The first of which was, again, a kind of hot new release this week. A game about digging a hole is the name of this game, released on Steam. And I finished it in one sitting in about an hour and a half while watching AEW Dynamite last week. And it's a really simple game where you are literally, buy a house that is listed for very cheap, with the one catch being that there is a what would they claim to be buried treasure in your backyard, and all you have to do is dig and find it, and it's yours, and you can get rich. So you buy the house, and there's a big X marked in your backyard, and you grab a shovel and you just start digging, and the amount of dirt that you're digging up from the ground with your little battery powered shovel is not that substantial at first, but as you're kind of digging into the ground, you're finding rocks and various kinds of ore like coal and copper. You eventually find gold and platinum the deeper you get. And with those ores, you are able to go back to your garage, which has a little upgrade bench and a place for you to sell your ore for money, which you then can use at the upgrade bench to upgrade your shovel. You can buy a jetpack to more efficiently fly out of the hole once you get deep enough. Upgrades for your battery. Eventually, towards the end game, you upgrade to a drill from your shovel, and it feels really satisfying to just just carve away dirt instead of having to do little chuck digs. I recommend playing this game with a controller as opposed to mouse and keyboard. My wife she played this game before I did. I think because one of the streamers she follows was playing it, so she got it and played all of it on Steam Deck, also in one sit-in. It's a really simple but really satisfying loop kind of goes into like a little bit of a spooky mode towards the end as you get to the bottom of the hole, and there's some stuff you encounter down there. Just really simple, fun loop, and something you can do that's kind of mindless. Like I did it while watching wrestling, so it's $5, so not that much of an investment for honestly a really good fun short time. So a game about digging a hole. And speaking of some spooky stuff going on, and then also kind of speaking of my birthday, my wife recently got me for my birthday a dock for my Steam Deck, which allows me to, hook it up to a TV or, whatever monitor accepts a HDMI input, and play my Steam Deck games on a TV with, just like a like my Xbox controller that I use on my PC. You could just plug that into the Steam Deck and play games on my TV. And with that, she also, a little bit of, like not. A little bit of like serving her own wants and needs, got it so that I could play games on the TV so that she could watch me play some of the stuff that she doesn't necessarily want to play herself, but wants to watch me play. And one of those games I did again in one sitting on this past Saturday was Mouthwashing. I finally played Mouthwashing, the indie horror darling from last year. And yeah, it's fantastic. It's a game that I felt like I was kind of waiting for the perfect time to play it, because I know that I kind of wanted to play it in one sitting and really, digest everything about it in one go. And I finally had the excuse to do that with my wife, thanks to her getting me that Steam Deck. Thank you, wife. I love you. And yeah, it's a, very affecting story, both visually and, symbolically. It's a very heavy story about capitalism and survival of sexual abuse, or sometimes not survival of sexual abuse, and just like a real bummer ending, but with like just really fleshed out and interesting characters. If you like something like Alien, the kind of, a bunch of people on a space freighter going through a horrible crisis, but with like way more like trippier visuals. It's I think a modern classic. Like if you are at all a fan of horror games, indie games, you owe it to yourself to play Mouthwashing. And it's also something that I kind of don't want to give a ton away about, like talk about in specific detail, because some of the best parts of the game are experienced by just playing it. So if you're at all, if you're not planning on playing it, but you're still like kind of interested in it, at the very least, the name Mouthwashing comes from the space, freighter that you're taking through space, that you're kind of like a long haul, space truck basically, and the haul that you are transporting is a bunch of mouthwash that the crew is kind of, finds themselves stranded in space, and to kind of take the edge off, they start drinking the mouthwash because it has alcohol in it, and are trying to use that to at least pass the time. But yeah, fantastic game. Definitely check it out if that at all interests you. And then the last game I finished was I finally put the finishing touches on the JRPG Ys 8 Lacrimosa of Dana. And it ends about the way that you would expect a JRPG to end, with, which ends up being you fight what you think is the main antagonist of the game, and then you end up fighting God. So JRPGs, it does, what those usually do. But it was actually The end didn't, because the Ys series is known for being pretty, difficult as far as, its action RPG ness goes. But I actually found, maybe because I did so much of the side stuff, I actually didn't find the end to be that difficult. Maybe I'm just a master gamer. I'm not a master gamer. But yeah, just great RPG. Finally, I think I started that in December, so it was a good almost 3 months of me playing Ys 8 Lacrimosa of Dawn on and off. Finally finished it. I think I clocked maybe some like 50 to 60 hours into it. Great game. Well, one of the highs of the Ys series. But that was all the games I played this past week. Why don't we take one more quick break, and when we come back, I will have a third segment for you.
It is Ryan Seacrest here. There was a recent social media trend which consisted of flying on a plane with no music, no movies, no entertainment. But a better trend would be going to ChumbaCasino.com. It's like having a mini social casino in your pocket. Chumba Casino has over 100 online casino-style games, all absolutely free. It's the most fun you can have online and on a plane. So grab your free welcome bonus now at ChumbaCasino.com. Sponsored by Chumba Casino.
No purchase necessary. VGW Group. Void where prohibited by law. 21 plus. Terms and conditions apply.
All right, we are back, folks, and it is time for the third segment of the show. That's right, it's time for the Strafe Shuffle. And this week, I thought I would cover what's, very much a hot topic in the world of tech these days, and something that Xbox has decided to kind of throw their hat into for the industry at large. That being generative AI. Coming from Video Games Chronicle, who has been covering this story, Xbox has built an AI model that can generate video game visuals and actions. Microsoft has debuted a generative AI model that it says can generate game visuals, controller actions, or both. This generative AI model, which Microsoft has named Muse, was developed by Microsoft's game intelligence team in collaboration with Ninja Theory. It will be made open source to help other researchers explore these models and build on their work, Microsoft has said. On Wednesday, Microsoft published several videos showing what gameplay sequences generated by Muse could look like. The company said these examples were generated by prompting the model with 10 initial frames, 1 second, of human gameplay and the controller actions of the whole play sequence. The footage was trained using Ninja Theory's 2020 hero shooter Bleeding Edge. Using 1 second of real gameplay, the model generated basic movement and geometry and recognizable character models. An in-depth report on the new model is available on Nature. Generative AI has been a hot topic in games industry in recent years, with concerns about generative AI leading to job losses and potential plagiarism. So this feels bleak, if I'm going to be honest, because what they've done here is this AI model Muse is able to look at like a snippet of an existing game and generate a new game out of it, based on like the footage and controller inputs that it is looking at, and spit something out that the footage that they're showing kind of looks like a new game, but like not really. It's using kind of like a similar aesthetic, but maybe not like similar genre to Bleeding Edge. And this is really my biggest fear for generated AI generated content like this, is that I feel like the people who are in charge at these companies are so hopeful about what's essentially just like generating content, and they don't really care about the quality of that content. They just care that it is new content that they can make for cheap, because it is, something that they will have to pay people less time for to develop the thing. And then that is just new content for people to potentially buy and spend money on. And in the case of, generative AI, it's also like you will eventually get to a point where if this is the future of game development, then you will have this model trained on what are kind of copies of copies until they don't resemble anything at a certain point, like kind of a, singularity of garbage, if I'm being honest. That might be a bit of a bleak take on it, but I'm not a fan of, I feel like I've not made it to, hidden the fact that I am not a fan of this kind of generative AI. Not to say that AI itself is, this big boogeyman that we should all be afraid of. There are tools that claim to use AI that are useful in creative endeavors that aren't necessarily generative. Tools that help in like more monotonous tasks, like what was used in Dune to make the blue effect on people's eyes. What would usually take someone hours and hours of keyframing, they used what they said is a AI tool to just like auto map that onto people's eyes. So stuff like that is fine and cool and, helps people do their jobs. But something like this with the potential to replace people's jobs and make, what I would say is like less good content, less quality content, I should say, is unnerving, especially considering something like this week when I was talking about Avowed and how that it feels like such a great handcrafted experience. Like all of the side quests that you go through don't feel like just cookie cutter, like, oh, go kill the rats and get, bring back 10 rat heads or whatever and take it back to this person and get, a reward for that quest. It's like actual, like narratively interesting, well-designed encounters. And like, even like exploring the open world, like there are vistas that I feel like are just well placed and designed in such a way that I don't think a computer could do. Like it feels intentionally designed by a person. And also it's not just new games that apparently they're, thinking about using this technology on. They're also thinking about using it in a preservation aspect, by using what they say is, hang on, let me pull up this quote. They say, today, countless classic games tied to aging hardware are no longer playable by most people, said gaming AI corporate VP Fatima Kardar. Thanks to this breakthrough, we are exploring the potential to use Muse to take older back catalog games from our studios and optimize them for any device. We believe this could radically change how we preserve and experience classic games in the future and make them accessible to more players. To imagine that beloved games lost to time and hardware advancement could one day be played on any screen with Xbox is an exciting possibility for us. The part of that concerns me is that as far as, emulating old games, there are people like at the hobby level, not even the professional level, who spend hours and hours of their time like tinkering with these old games to make sure that they feel as close as possible to that original experience. Because to truly preserve something, it has to be a one-to-one thing. Like if you take an AI generative model and train it on an old game and it spits out something that isn't a one-to-one copy, then it is not actually preserved. And at that point, what is the point of actually going through with, attempting to quote unquote preserve something if it's not going to actually be the thing? Like, I don't get it. I don't like, I can understand from, a executive's standpoint, because he's, just being so excited about AI and whatnot. But man, that is, as someone who is a fan of, old games, that is something that honestly offends me more than using this to make new games. Of which apparently Microsoft CEO Satya Nadella has said they are planning on using Muse to have a catalog of video games that utilize Muse. So, training it on other stuff, obviously, besides Ninja Theory's 2020 Bleeding Edge game. Says that it's just very cool. One thing that we wanted to go after was using gameplay data. Can you actually generate games that are both consistent and then have the ability to generate and the diversity of what that game represents, and then are persistent to user mods, right? So that's what this is, he told the Dwarkish podcast. The cool thing is, what I'm excited about is bringing... we're going to have a catalog of games soon that we will start using these models, or we are going to train these models to generate and then start playing them. End quote. So yeah, just again, they are apparently looking forward to a future of having an entire catalog of these AI generated games. Hopefully they will be transparent about that, like what games that they are working on that were, majority used generative AI to develop, as opposed to ones that are handcrafted still. So I guess the future will tell as far as how these things will be made, B, like the lengths to which developers will be involved in the process of these AI generated games, and C, how receptive audiences are going to actually be to these AI generative games. And I guess that's where we'll leave it there. Tell me your opinions on what you think. Are you hopeful about this? Are you scared of this? Are you just kind of hoping that this is a speculative bubble that eventually pops like crypto before it, and that we'll just all move on with our lives eventually? Let me know in the Discord. But that will be it for this week's episode. Thank you so much for listening to Squared Circle Strafe. Leave us a nice review on Apple Podcasts if you like the show. You can follow me on Blue Sky at Uzi Neon if you want to catch more of me talking about some real nerdy stuff. You can follow the Didn't Get All of It podcast to hear me and the rest of the Fatal 4 hosts talk about the latest and greatest in professional wrestling. You can also sign up for our Patreon to get exclusive access to our Discord, as well as bonus content and the satisfaction of supporting independent podcasting media. Head to patreon.com/fatal4pod. That's fatal, F-O-U-R pod. Thank you again for listening, and as always, enjoy your gaming.
You've been listening to a Fatal 4 podcast. Subscribe today wherever you get your podcasts, and visit fatal4pod.com for more episodes, merchandise, and info on the Patreon.
It is Ryan Seacrest here. There was a recent social media trend which consisted of flying on a plane with no music, no movies, no entertainment. But a better trend would be going to ChumbaCasino.com. It's like having a mini social casino in your pocket. Chumba Casino has over 100 online casino-style games, all absolutely free. It's the most fun you can have online and on a plane. So grab your free welcome bonus now at ChumbaCasino.com. Sponsored by Chumba Casino.
No